months ago, when Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lost her leadership bid to be the ranking member on the Oversight Committee, a lot of people felt like, this really explains some issues with the Democrats. They don't prioritize their bench. They don't raise up their rising stars. They care too much about seniority. And maybe they were hoping, like, coming out of this, when they expressed how frustrated they were, that something would change. Well, doesn't seem super like that's happening, at least when it comes to the Oversight Committee right now, because we talked last week about the fact that Gerry Connolly is stepping down from the position that he won out over AOC. He has the health issues, which are regrettable, they're tragic, but also not at all surprising considering his age and his health condition when he won over AOC. And despite that, they're not correcting what a lot of young Democrats would see as that wrong. So Connolly named Massachusetts Representative Stephen Lynch, a 70-year-old, so comparatively younger than Connolly, as the Democrats' interim leader on the panel. Lynch said that he will be pursuing that job with Connolly's backing. Doesn't mean that he automatically gets it. You get to have that battle behind the scenes, but it doesn't look like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will actually be throwing her hat in the ring this time around. She said, "It's actually clear to me that the underlying dynamics in the caucus have not shifted with respect to seniority as much as I think would be necessary. So I believe I'll be staying put at Energy and Commerce. I think the result will largely be the same at this point." So she doesn't seem to think that were she to take the potentially risky move of trying to win it again, that it would be a different outcome. And especially as she's having all these good news cycles of her Fight the Oligarchy tour, and she's drawing all this attention, these big crowds, she doesn't want to potentially have that loss. But that said, it doesn't mean that a progressive still couldn't win out and head, or become the ranking member, I should say, of Oversight. You have Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett, who has apparently been talking to people behind the scenes about running for the position. You have Robert Garcia of California, friend of the show Ro Khanna, and Maxwell Frost as well. And so it could still be one of those. I'm disappointed that AOC isn't gonna try, because I think that if the Democrats did win the House back in the midterms, there's nobody that I would have more faith in to do oversight and investigations and hearings than AOC. But some of these other names are good people too. I think they could do a good job. So Luke, I'm curious what you think about where this might go, what they might be able to achieve in that position.
Listen, John, Chuck Schumer here. We don't need one of these young skippers in the oversight. We have all the oversight that we need from me. I don't know if you heard, John, I sent a strongly worded letter the way of it's going to be hitting his mailbox powerfully to Trump. And I think that'll get him to back off, and we'll be good. I also have a new phrase. Captain Chaos is Trump's. I think that'll take him down. This is
I'd read that comic book, Captain Chaos.
I don't know if you saw Hakeem Jeffries was like, we should call him Captain Chaos. It's just, all right, I don't know. It just, none of this feels right. Chuck Schumer was doing this press conference recently, and Donald Trump was, and his head was dropping where you couldn't hear what he was saying. He's turning around, speaking away from the microphone, and he goes on talking about strongly written letters. And then that's over in the Senate, but there's just this vibe that I'm not one of these people that necessarily your age means that you can't do a job effectively and pick up on new ideas and all that. It's just that it so happens a lot of these older leaders right now are holding on to an era that is gone. And if we're going, okay, most likely, even if the Democrats mess a lot of things up, Trump's disaster is going to be a real boost to Democrats in the midterms. But that doesn't mean that we're going to get the type of systemic change that we need to eventually overcome the Trump era that we're in. If we keep doing this thing where we defeat Trump because he's unpopular, and then we put in people who are kind of, yeah, they'll do some good stuff, but it's just kind of, it's not quite right, then we're going to have this cycle of that produces really extreme leaders. And so all of the old guard group just needs to get together. And I don't know if it's Jasmine Crockett, I don't know if it's AOC necessarily, but just, and they need to talk about how they can empower leaders who bring a little bit more energy, and talk a little bit less about how maybe oligarchy people don't understand, and talk more about what it is that's being tapped into in rallies like that and in pursuits like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that it would be good for the country. I think it would be great for the Democratic Party. I've expressed the same thought that, like, yeah, we can beat them, but if we don't give people someone to excite them over the next 4 years, then we're just going to do the cycle again. We've been through that cycle now for quite some time. Like they put in Trump in 2016, and obviously people didn't like that. That's why they threw his ass out. And like Biden was obviously significantly better than having more Donald Trump, but it wasn't exciting enough to continue, even with Harris being tied to his campaign and everything. That made it hard. I don't want to just keep doing this cycle. I want somebody like Daenerys Targaryen to break the wheel. And then, after they do that, if they want to burn down the city or whatever, they can do that. But anyway, I just want something. I want something that lasts. I want something durable. And I don't think that some of these people who've been hanging on understand these new times that we're in. Maybe some of these younger figures potentially could. And so I see this to be a sort of depressing turn. It could turn out good, I mean, Jasmine Crockett would be awesome in that position. She's a lawyer. She could do a hell of a job. She knows how to generate headlines. She's very fast on her feet. She rhetorically, in terms of hearings, she does the prep and everything. I think Ro Khanna would do a good job too. I think Maxwell Frost would be sort of the wild card there. That would be wild to see. Maybe we'll end up seeing it. But if it just ends up being like effectively a continuation of Gerry Connolly, that doesn't get me excited. But anyway, any final thought?
I actually agree. I think Ro Khanna might be a good figure. He's been really good at a lot of what we'll do is we talk, against MAGA and there's some articulation of our own principles, but I think Ro Khanna has been pretty good at laying out a more comprehensive vision of how you could structure both policy and messaging to really push us past this moment and create something better.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And look, maybe at some point having AOC on energy and commerce, that is also an important committee in terms of when they're in the minority. I would rather have her in oversight, but it's not nothing for her to have that position and to generate some seniority there. So if you're a big fan of AOC, there is still some upside to this change as well.
If you enjoyed that, make sure that you never miss another video by subscribing. And if you want a little more, consider hitting the join button and becoming an actual member. But you're probably wondering, why the hell would I do that, John? First off, calm down. The stakes in this are very, very low. But also, when you click the join button and you become a member, you get access to bonus content that I make every week, and it's a ton of fun. You get access to tons of custom emojis and more besides that. By the way, if you join at tier 3, you even get access to a monthly member hangout with myself and other awesome people, and we always have a great time. By the way, you'll get all that going forward, but you also unlock years of the back catalog. That is literally 100 or more bonus clips, top 10 lists, debates, and more. What are you waiting for? Click the join button below. Your support powers our show, and we couldn't do it without you. Or at the very least, I wouldn't really want to try. Viewers like you keep me here. So thank you in advance for joining.